We wake up every morning, but the mind doesn't. It scrolls, reacts, consumes, repeats. We call that awareness, but it's really a sleepwalk through noise dressed as clarity. Every second, we absorb more information than any generation before us, yet we've never been more disconnected from thought itself. What we mistake for intelligence is often just memorized confusion. There was a time when silence was part of thinking. Now silence feels threatening. We've built a world allergic to stillness, where being informed means drowning in a stream of borrowed opinions. The greatest enemy of knowledge, Stephen Hawking said, is not ignorance. It is the illusion of knowledge. And that illusion is now an empire. Every day, we scroll through thousands of voices telling us what to want, what to fear, what to believe. The brain, wired for efficiency, adapts fast. It learns to outsource thought. Algorithms become our second cortex. The cost of that convenience? Depth. The kind of thinking that hurts a little, that stretches your inner world until you actually feel the friction of awareness. Most people avoid that pain at all costs. But here's the secret, that discomfort is the birthplace of consciousness. If you've ever felt that numb pull of scrolling, that strange emptiness after consuming so much, stay. Because what you're feeling isn't boredom, it's the quiet extinction of your inner voice. And this conversation might remind you what real thought feels like. If you want to think again, really think, subscribe and stay with me. Not for content, but for consciousness. So how did we get here? How did we trade the vastness of thought for the comfort of instant answers? It started when speed became the new virtue. The faster you respond, the smarter you seem. But real intelligence doesn't rush, it lingers. It doubts, it listens. The mind that pauses is the mind that perceives truth. There's a paradox in modern life. The more connected we are, the lonelier our ideas become. The echo chambers we live in don't expand the mind, they shrink it. The internet promised freedom of thought. Instead, it gave us freedom from thinking. We confuse reacting with reasoning, outrage with wisdom, and noise with presence. And slowly, without noticing, we start to believe that the world inside our screen is the world itself. When the brain stops engaging deeply, it begins to atrophy. Neuroplasticity doesn't just build connections, it loses them too. Each time we skip reflection for reaction, each time we chase dopamine instead of insight, the architecture of the mind changes. We become efficient machines running outdated software, but something remarkable still hides beneath the static. The human mind, your mind, is ancient, vast, and capable of regeneration. It remembers what it was before the noise. It remembers curiosity, wonder, genuine solitude. It remembers the simple, quiet question that starts every revolution. What if? This is the moment most people turn away. Thinking deeply feels like drowning at first. But when you stay long enough, you realize it's not drowning, it's surfacing. That ache behind your eyes, that tiredness after a real conversation, that pause when you realize you don't know. Those are signs of awakening, not weakness. We live in a time where surface brilliance is celebrated, but depth is rare. And yet, brilliance without awareness is blindness wearing a crown. The mind was never meant to be a mirror for other people's voices. It was meant to be a lighthouse, to illuminate, not imitate. Maybe that's why brilliant minds, the ones that awaken, always seem out of place. They speak slowly, doubt often, feel deeply. They don't belong to the noise. They belong to what's real. Thinking, in its purest form, isn't about finding answers. It's about rediscovering the space where questions can breathe again. The moment you reclaim that space, you begin to feel alive in a way that no screen can simulate. The moment you stop chasing thoughts that aren't yours, your mind starts coming home. We are not meant to be perfect algorithms of reaction. We are meant to be messy, slow, conscious beings who pause before responding, who sit with discomfort until it becomes light, who remember that truth doesn't shout, it whispers, and it only whispers in silence. So maybe the first act of real intelligence today isn't learning something new. It's unlearning the noise. It's closing the screen, breathing deeply, and daring to think your own thoughts again. Because the mind that questions, truly questions, is already free. You know what's strange? Nobody forced us into this mental fog. We walked in willingly, scrolling, liking, agreeing, until the cage looked like comfort. Nobody built a prison for our minds. We just accepted the illusion of freedom that came with good Wi-Fi. We called it progress. But progress without presence becomes manipulation in disguise. Here's the hard truth. No one had to steal our attention. We gave it away, click by click, until the quiet voice inside us couldn't compete with the constant noise. And now, the world runs on that trade, our awareness for their profit. Control today doesn't come with chains, it comes wrapped in convenience. It doesn't look like power, it feels like choice. You think you're choosing what to watch, what to believe, who to follow. But behind every recommendation, there's a prediction. Behind every like, there's a pattern being written about who you are, what you'll do next, how you'll feel in 20 minutes. It's not a conspiracy, it's just the math of attention. The more predictable your emotions, the easier you are to sell to, guide, and control. Goethe warned about this centuries ago. None are more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free. We are the first generation to build our own cages and call them timelines. Every headline is a pulse test. Every app is a lab. Outrage, reward, fear, repeat. Dopamine doesn't care if it comes from truth or lies. It just wants another hit. That's why you open the same app again and again, knowing it won't fill you but still hoping it will. You're not weak, you're wired. That's what the system counts on. The more reactive you become, the less reflective you are. We scroll because it's easier than sitting with the discomfort of our own thoughts. We fill the silence because silence asks questions and questions threaten control. Here's what people don't talk about. The brain actually changes with this. Every scroll, every flash of outrage, every shallow argument trains the mind to avoid depth. The neural pathways that handle attention, memory, and critical thought begin to thin out. That's not philosophy, that's neuroscience. Daniel Kahneman called it System 1. Fast, automatic, reactive. Great for survival, terrible for truth. We've been conditioned to believe that reacting fast means being smart. But real intelligence is slow. It doubts, it hesitates, it contemplates. It makes room for contradiction. The system doesn't want that. It can't monetize patience. And that's why thinkers are dangerous. The person who pauses, who doesn't respond instantly, breaks the loop. The system can't predict silence. That's why awareness feels like rebellion. Jung said that people don't have ideas. Ideas have people. Today, it's not even ideas, it's algorithms. They possess us. They make us feel angry, righteous, clever, afraid. And then we call those emotions our own. But if every reaction is scripted by external triggers, are we still thinking? Maybe that's why awakened minds feel like outsiders. They notice the manipulation and can't unsee it. They sense how words are used not to communicate, but to divide. How culture turned into content. How connection became performance. It's not that people have become shallow, it's that we've been trained to survive in the shallows. Deep water requires breath, patience, courage. But everything in modern life says don't dive, just swipe. Still, something ancient inside you resists. That spark, the one that feels restless after too much. Noise, that's your original code. That's the part that refuses to be automated. Krishnamurti said, "It is no measure of health to be well." Adjusted to a profoundly sick society, the moment you see the pattern, you start adjusting less. You begin asking questions that don't fit the script. Why do I believe what I believe? Why do I want what I want? Why do I feel empty after doing everything I'm told will make me happy? Those questions break control, because the moment you ask them, the system can't finish your sentence. The algorithm loses its grip. Neuroscience has a name for that too, neuroplasticity. Every time you choose awareness over impulse, you carve a new path in your brain. You start rerouting the traffic of your own mind, thought by thought, silence by silence. You build a new architecture, one not based on reaction, but reflection. That's what true rebellion looks like. Not shouting louder than the noise, but refusing to let the noise define you. Not breaking the machine, but remembering you were never one. And when that happens, everything changes. The world doesn't seem louder anymore. It seems slower, more deliberate. You notice how people talk without listening, how attention has become currency, how truth has been replaced by performance. But you also notice something beautiful. When you step out of the game, you begin to feel alive again. The irony is, control isn't maintained by force, it's maintained by distraction. The way out isn't war, it's awareness. You don't defeat the system by hating it. You transcend it by seeing through it. So take this as a quiet challenge. Notice when your attention drifts. Notice what steals it. Don't rush to react. Just breathe, observe, and reclaim your own pace. That's how the architecture begins to crack. Not with chaos, but with clarity. Because in the end, freedom isn't a revolution out there. It's a reconstruction in here. And every thought you reclaim is a brick in the rebuilding of your mind. You've probably noticed it by now. The noise doesn't stop. Even when you put the phone down, it lingers in your head like static. The mind keeps spinning, remembering comments, comparing lives, replaying old loops. That's not you thinking. That's you processing residue. The lucid mind begins where the residue ends. It's not a smarter mind or a holier one, it's simply an honest one. It starts by saying enough. Enough reacting, enough pretending, enough confusing stimulation with meaning. Awareness isn't an upgrade, it's a return. Every awakened person I've met had a breaking point. That one moment where the world's noise felt too heavy to carry, and silence wasn't optional anymore. It was survival. For some, it came through loss. For others, through burnout or heartbreak. For a few, it came quietly, like a soft question. Is this really me? That question cracks something open, because beneath the noise, beneath the algorithm, beneath every identity we've built to belong, there's something wild and still. And when you finally meet it, you remember what being alive actually feels like. Lucidity isn't a light that suddenly appears. It's what remains when all false lights fade. It's the slow recovery of attention, the rediscovery of breath. The moment you stop trying to be someone and start noticing that you already are. Nietzsche once wrote, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe." Today, that tribe isn't in the village, it's in the feed. But the struggle is the same, to remain individual in a world obsessed with conformity. To remain conscious in a culture that rewards reaction. That's what this whole journey is about. Not becoming enlightened, but becoming real. Because reality, when seen clearly, is already sacred. You start to realize that your attention is your greatest currency. What you give it to grows. What you ignore withers. Every second you spend observing rather than reacting, thinking rather than scrolling, you're reclaiming a piece of your own life. And here's the beautiful part. Lucidity doesn't isolate you. It connects you more deeply. When the mind stops performing, the heart starts listening. You notice people's pain without judging it, their joy without envying it, their confusion without trying to fix it. You become the space where understanding happens. Alan Watts said it perfectly. You are the aperture through which the universe is looking at and exploring itself. When you wake up to that, something shifts. You stop chasing experiences and start living them. You stop fearing stillness and start craving it, because stillness is no longer empty, it's full. That's when the noise loses its power. It doesn't disappear, it just stops owning you. The scroll slows, the breath deepens. The world feels new, not because it changed, but because you did. This is the paradox of awakening. It doesn't make life easier, it makes it truer. You'll still face the chaos of modern life, the endless stimulation, the systems that profit from your distraction. But now you see them for what they are, noise, not truth. And when you see clearly, you choose differently. You build boundaries, you protect your peace like oxygen. You realize that saying no isn't rejection, it's reverence. Every no to noise is a yes to consciousness. That's how the lucid mind moves through the world. Not with superiority, but with grace. It doesn't shout, it doesn't preach, it just shines quietly, and that quiet light is contagious. So here's the real revolution. Think slower, feel deeper, question everything that demands urgency. Protect your silence like it's sacred, because it is. The lucid mind isn't a destination, it's a practice, a daily return to what's real. And if you can do that, even for a few minutes, a day, you're already changing the architecture of your reality. If this message resonated with you, stay close. There's more ahead, more truths to unlearn, more clarity to reclaim, more ways to see through the fog together. Subscribe, not for me, but for you, because your awakening starts with remembering what you already knew. This is Human Wave, where awakened minds rise into a life of wholeness and fulfillment.